Hey everybody, it's Jamie with One More of the Good Guys. In our last little episode, we assigned all three of our vocal tracks on the podcast to a group channel. We named it Vocal Group, Vox Group. And this is where it gets fun. I can do a lot of different stuff here with this channel because it's got everything. All my sources are going to this one channel. So the first thing I do is I use an EQ to eyeball and use an EQ like Renaissance EQ or Fab Filter or whatever. Renaissance EQ is an old time Waves EQ. And what I like about this one versus, say, the Q10 or 6 or whatever, is that it shows the waveform, the current waveform, as it is on here. So let's just take a look for a second. You'll see what I mean.
And all that shit anymore.
We'll turn it
so
on.
I'll catch up with Dan Patrick or Rich Eisen, or so I'll check out YouTube clips of all that stuff of things I wanting to know about and things that are going on.
Okay, so as you can see, because I have got remember, if you will, a high pass filter on each one of these, you're not getting any signal down here.
On and like the sports stuff and then a few other channels.
Okay, so let's test that for just a second. I'm going to turn on this high pass filter.
For whatever reason, I got on this thing of basically it was Tim Conway's
and no effect.
Best hits for
you can't hear a difference.
And
I don't want to be using effect.
He tormented
in too many different definitions.
He tormented
so we've already got on all of our programming a high pass filter, so we really don't need that. So what I'm doing here, I'm just looking for trouble areas, right? Stuff that I'm using my ears and I use my eyes right here. Mostly use your ears. So let's play around with this. You'll see what I mean.
And there was the one that was so fucking funny. I mean, all of them were funny, but this one was just stood out of how physical. I mean, he not only was he.
Now with a speech, mixing speech like this, I make it to where it's intelligible and low ear fatigue. I want people to be able to listen to it comfortably and for a long time. All right. Now, because of the way our speech and the human voice is, you'll see here, let's turn off this point. You'll see where that most of the frequencies are here.
Quick-witted and could come back with stuff, but physical.
Now, we have 3 male voices here. If you had some females, you would have a little bit higher, but not much.
Comedy. He was a genius.
Okay, so when you get everybody talking at once, some of your problem areas are going to be here. Now, you can do this on an individual track basis, but if you like the way you've got it here, hey, let's just use a slight dip and a cut and a boost. And before you say, oh, you only use subtractive EQ, baloney. Okay, yes, I understand that, but sometimes we need to boost just for personal preference.
He was.
But they had the ones.
All right, let's get ridiculous with
where
it.
He's coming down the steps, and he's the old man.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he falls in slow motion, so he's like rolling.
Okay.
Over,
Obviously, these are extremes that you want to stay away from. If you got if you need to make extreme moves, or start cutting out frequencies that are narrow, so you raise your Q factor and you're having a dip here, you need to go back to your individual tracks and find out where you've allowed something to get out of hand. That's not what this is for. Okay. Especially when you have control of the source material. If you're on the back at the end of the process and you're mastering, hey, you got to do what you got to do, especially pre-AI and all that. All right, but for this kind of stuff, all I'm doing here is I'm realistically taking a look at this, and you can use spectrum analyzers and all kinds of stuff, but I just like to use an EQ. I'm old school.
And then he hits it again. Oh my gosh.
I loved how Harvey Korman could never hold a straight face.
Oh,
that made it even funnier to me. I loved Carl Burnett growing up.
Yeah.
So I was like an only child, and my mom and dad, they were both kids of the 50s and 60s, and so growing up, man, I watched their TV, listened to their music, and I never complained. Like, I was one of those kids, like I was in the 80s going to school, whatever the kids was watching on TV, which don't get me wrong, I watched the 80s shows too.
Yeah,
the
sure.
A-Team, Dukes of Hazzard.
Sure,
of course,
yeah.
I watched whatever was out there. But I was going back and watching, Carl Burnett.
So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to take a little bit of the mud out. So that's the first step. I'll take a look at the EQ, make some small adjustments as my ear feels like it's necessary, and emphasis on small here. Okay, and it's just that little bit of difference that's going to make a difference in your final mix. So what I've done is I've created a group channel and I've put an EQ on the front end. I've analyzed it by my eyes and ears, and you can work this out the way you want. I'm not finished. I'm just showing you the process. And that is my first step once I create a group channel. It's Jamie for One More for the Good Guys. One More for the Good Guys. I'll see you next time.